like to start every morning with something that I fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. We know that this journey is so jargon intensive that it can really sink your battleship. You're in a place where you're wanting to get help for your kid and you're asking an expert or asking somebody at school, what are we going to do about this? And the answer that you get seems like it's a foreign language because it is so full of jargon. And when you stop and say, I'm sorry, I don't know what you just said, can you explain it to me? Then it either takes this whole period of time when you could have been working on something for your child and now you're having to get educated about what this term means. And frequently they then use more jargon words and you have to have those explained, right? And it takes a whole lot of time. Or you're at home and trying to look things up in a dictionary can be very frustrating. So we like to teach ourselves the same way that we like to teach our children, a little bit at a time, manageable bites, right? Because what we find is that we don't get frustrated that way, and over time we build up a repertoire. We make friends with the jargon. I'm still trying to make friends with the jargon. Some of the words I have and others, right? It's all a process. It's all a process. So we take one word, one phrase, one anagram a day and pick it apart. We give you an actual definition and then a working definition that's a little bit more simplistic. So let's take a look at today's word. It is intraverbal. I know. Did we think years ago that these were the kinds of things that were going to fill our day? I didn't, but here we are anyway. Okay, intraverbal. And the actual definition is an elementary verbal operant that is evoked by a verbal discriminative stimulus and that does not have point-to-point correspondence with that verbal stimulus. Well, that makes it crystal clear, doesn't it? Aren't we glad we invested the time in that? Actual definition. This is the kind of definition that I'm talking about when I say sometimes you look something up and it's worse. Great. An elementary verbal operant that is evoked by a verbal discriminative stimulus, and I've gone to sleep by this point, right? Okay, so let's look at what our working definition is, see if it's a little bit more simplistic, and then we'll see if we can't explain it even further. Something somebody says in response to the language of another person, conversational language. Okay, so that's a little bit easier to understand, but there are going to be times when we're teaching language, when first we're going to teach the expressive label for something, then we're going to teach the receptive label for something. Now, these were our jargon words earlier in the week, expressive and receptive. So let's say that we're teaching the word dog, and we want for the child to be able to express the word dog when they're talking about dog, right? So we want them, I can't remember what the sign is for dog, but we would want to either teach them the sign or some kind of gesture, or to point to a picture that has a dog, or the vocal word dog, depending on where the child's current abilities are, right? If vocal speech is something that's really, really difficult, we may be working on it in another way in order to reinforce it and get back to the vocal speech. We don't give up on the vocal speech, but sometimes it's easier to teach the functional communication skills and come back and add the vocal speech. But let's say for a moment that the child is progressing with vocal speech. So we teach the expressive label for dog. So we're getting the child to first say dog, and in a coax, we say dog, the child says dog. Then we're going to be pointing to this thing and saying, what is it? And the child says dog. Okay, so the child can express dog. But we also need to teach the receptive label for dog, that when we say dog, that the child hears dog and understands dog. That's the receptive label. So we might put a picture of a dog or a statue of a dog and say, give me the dog. And now the child has to hear dog. They're not saying it, but they understand, okay, it's a dog. Great. Well, that's great, and we've taught the expressive and the receptive, but we now need to teach the tacting of it. We're going to talk a little bit about tacting, so that at some point the child is going to spontaneously see a dog and point and go dog, and that's a way for them to be pointing it out to us. That's tacting. But eventually we want the child to be able to use the word dog in circumstances that are interverbals. So if I say say, what has 4 legs and a tail and likes to chew on bones in your house, and I haven't used the word dog, and the child listens to everything and says, a dog. That is an intraverbal, because I didn't say the word dog, but it is the answer for them. And likewise, that they can start a conversation talking about a dog so that I say dog from both sides of it. So an intraverbal is part of a question or an answer that was not in the question or the answer. I feel like I've made it worse explaining this. But if I say to you, what's something that's yellow that's in the sky, and you say sun, that's an intraverbal. I didn't say sun in the question, but you answered with sun. And it's just a deeper understanding of language and a way to use language so that we get that global understanding of a word, that they're not just understanding dog from one perspective, that they can think dog, they can see dog, they point out dog, they're saying dog, they're understanding dog, and they can respond with dog even though somebody has not said the word dog. So intraverbal is the part of it where they can answer a question with that term without that term being in the question. I don't feel like we really, I hope that's clear. I'm guessing it's not. But you know what? If it's not, stick around, because I think it's sometimes easier when you see your child doing it. That when your child starts to be able to use these words in a conversation, and that's really what we're trying to get to in our working definition here, it's conversational speech. There's no mimicry in it. We haven't fed it to them. They're answering these things. They're really cognitively understanding what a dog is, which is a very exciting thing. It's a more advanced skill. Obviously, it's not something that you're going to work on immediately with a child who's just starting to gain functional communication skills, but it's where we're headed so that a child has that global understanding of a word.